All right, I'm going to model what's called an input strategy, an input chart. And the purpose of this is to provide you with a strategy using a graphic organizer to visually reveal information, so using visuals, and front load key vocabulary and concepts before you read a piece of text. So the whole goal of what I'm going to do is to help all students access the grade level text that you're going to give to every student. It has the necessary information in it. In fact, you want to test kids on whatever's in that piece of writing that they have to read. So your goal with this strategy is to first provide information so that they can, when they see that text, they understand it. What I'm going to do here is not fully teaching it to mastery. It is front loading it, providing interactive, safe dialogue so that we're ready to go into this. This is going to be a little wonky as I'm not a professional videographer and have to go back and forth. And I'm going to be pretending you're a classroom, and I'll probably have to move this a little bit for you to see all of the chart work. So first of all, notice that I have a chart up. This should be white. I didn't have white. There's reasons for that I can go into, but sometimes all we have is what we have. So my objective is up here. I can name 5 forms of energy and explain the work that form does. All right. Below it, I have the ELA standard. I'm just going to mention to kids what that is. It's about claim and quoting facts. And then I have my language standard, but I put it in the form of a frame, which we talked at the beginning of class. Blank energy comes from blank and helps us blank, compared to this kind of energy that comes from blank and helps us blank. I also have 2 routines I often use with my students. Something I'm wondering is, something I notice is. This is posted here. Students, I don't care what age, 12th graders, 10th graders, kindergartners, they're right up here close to me. And I have either politely asked them to sit next to someone who they can learn with, if that can be trusted, or I have strategically placed them in partnerships that I know that will be good learning partnerships, and have levels of language and understanding where when they turn and talk to each other about these, then they're going to be able to understand or provide some support for each other. All right. So one of the other things I'm going to do is sort of awkwardly, because of this format, model how I'm listening into students, and model that I'm going to give feedback when they do that. For middle school students, I use like whatever reward the system that they have, or I have images, printed images that I will hand students that also show them that they're going to do something with later, like a vocabulary sort. I'm just sharing that with you because sometimes when you're first teaching students to do this, students have been so used to being not seen and not heard and not accessing, you actually have to develop the idea that the teacher is listening to them and seeing them and acknowledging when they're turning and doing those things. So that's going to be very hard to see. Maybe shouldn't have mentioned it, but I do directly provide positive feedback and reinforcement when I see students turning and talking. All right, let's go to the strategy. So I'm now going to be a teacher, and you guys are the students, so to speak. Hi guys, today we are learning about the forms and types of energy. Say with me, forms and types of energy. Read with me, forms and types of energy. Thank you. Energy, we're going to define energy as the ability to do work. Thank you very much. You all have a lot of energy. You're all ready to do a lot of work today, right? We're also studying this very big question, not just about science, but in our life. How is energy used and stored? Okay, and I'm going to go through and highlight several different forms of energy. You can see that around, but what I want you to do right now is turn to the person you're talking to and tell them anything you know about the idea, the concept, or the form of energy. How do you use energy? How would you put it in a sentence? Do you know some of these forms of energy already? Have you learned about it? Turn to your partner, tell them anything you know about the concept of energy. Breaking out the strategy, I'm listening in. This is some of my assessment. What are kids talking about? Have some of them had science classes before? Do they understand that energy comes from the wall and plugging in? Am I hearing forms of electrical, mechanical energy? Are they just saying, I don't have any energy? Are they talking about an energy drink? All those are valid. Okay. Jose and Abigail, I heard you guys talking about energy. Something gives you energy in the morning. We're going to talk about that very kind of energy later today, right here, when we talk about chemical energy, which sounds weird, but chemical energy is actually what happens in our body when you eat food. All right, here we go. The first form of energy that I'm going to share with you, first number one, is called kinetic energy. That definitely has some different sounds. So say with me, kinetic, kinetic. Good. Kinetic energy is the kind of energy that comes when we are in motion. So you can see over here, thank you for your good attention. Thank you for your attention right there. If you have a skier at the top of a mountain, see, I'm not the best artist, but you guys can kind of get the point. There's a scarf, there's a skier, and they're at the top of the mountain and their skis are on. Here we go. Ski poles, they have some arms. Of course, they need that. Here's the skier. And they are starting to go down the hill. So they are in motion. This is called kinetic energy. It is related to when we are moving or in motion. The other form of energy I want to tell you about real quickly, that's very close to kinetic energy, is called potential energy. Say with me, potential. Potential. Read with me, potential. Potential. Potential energy is the energy something has due to its position. I'm going to write that. Energy something has due to its position. So the same skier is at the top of the mountain and they're just waiting for their buddy. If this is me, this is my husband waiting for me to get close. And they haven't even started to go down the mountain yet, okay? They are sitting there. They have potential energy. Say with me, potential. Read with me, potential. For instance, if you had a slingshot and you were to pull this slingshot back, and here is the rock that somebody is about ready to pull or launch out of there. This has potential energy. It's not yet in motion, right? So it has that potential. Both of these forms of energy go together in a special kind of energy altogether. It's a big category we call mechanical. Turn to your partner, tell them two kinds of energy that make up the category of mechanical and how they are the same and different. Go. You can use this frame. This form of energy comes from and helps us compared to this form of energy that comes from this and helps us. Tell me about the skiers. Which form of energy is still and which form is in motion? Talk to your partner. Again, listening in. I'm always working on my specifics with this frame. This is intended to be about a 20 to 30 minute lesson, front loading the vocabulary. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So if you guys talked about two forms of energy being kinetic and potential that are both mechanical forms of energy, you're correct. And thank you, Jesus, for talking about when you went skiing and comparing that to the going forward and then crashing and being stopped and not in motion. All right. Now, the next kind of, this is 1 and 2 forms. The third form we're going to talk about is called nuclear. Say with me, nuclear. Read with me, nuclear. Nuclear. Okay. Nuclear energy has two kinds of forms itself. One is called fusion, and another is called fission. And in fusion, the atom is fused. It's come together. And in fission, the atom is split. So we have drawing here of various atoms, and they're being pushed together or fused together. In fission, you have an atom, and it is split into ever increasing smaller pieces or atomic energy and parts. So fission is splitting, fusion is pulling together or melding. Turn to your partner, tell them the two kinds of nuclear energy you heard about and how are they the same or different. Go. So students again would talk. I'm listening in. Thank you guys for turning and talking quickly. Thank you. These turn and talks are quick. I'm reinforcing, I'm listening. Great. Thank you, Mason. You and Xander really talked about how these two forms of fusion and fission, I heard you talking about it, and also wondering if you guys, if the reactor up the road at Rainier is still active. Yeah, that'd be a great question. All right, so continuing on, our fourth kind of energy that we're going to talk about is thermal energy. And thermal energy is any kind of heat energy. So if we had a fire, obviously, that would be it's when it is burned. Another form of heat energy might be when you have a hot cup of coffee. So it's any energy relating to heat. One last thing, it is measured, we're going to talk about this later in the unit, measured in joules. And notice this is not the kind of spelling with the jewels on my ring, joules. Turn to your partner, what is thermal energy? Tell them everything you know. And did you use any thermal energy today in any way? Go. Students again are talking. So for every bit of information, I'm chunking and giving multiple opportunities for them to turn and talk, processing the words. Also notice in the embedded strategy of read with me, say with me, read with me. When I load a new word, I ask students to say it, and then I ask them to read it. Okay, attention back here. Thank you guys so much. Let's move on. We've got our fifth area is called chemical energy. And chemical energy, one of my favorite sort of examples of chemical energy, I think probably because it may be a little surprising to all of you, comes from eating. So if you had a sandwich for lunch, a yogurt for breakfast, or you are eating anything at all, you are consuming calories with a capital. And those are going into your body, forming a chemical reaction so that you can do things like think and run, so that your body can do things. So it is when chemical energy is released or absorbed during a chemical, read with me, chemical, say with me, chemical, read with me, chemical reaction. We measure this in calories. For instance, ice cream has about 145 calories. A banana has about 105 calories. Okay, so fifth form of energy is chemical. Moving on, the sixth form of energy is geothermal. Say with me, geothermal, geothermal. Read with me, geothermal, geothermal. I already told you what thermal is. The root word is thermal up here. And the prefix ahead of it is geo. Turn to your partner, what do you think geothermal is, or what do you already know it is? What kind of energy? Students would talk. Okay, I'm gonna stop here for now. I would load, I have 3 more forms of energy to load. And then I would say to them, as I did the same process, loading the pieces of energy or loading the images of it and putting the words on here and saying, say with me, read with me, asking them to turn and talk. What I formed is a graphic organizer of the forms. And so I would come back at the end and say, we have learned about 9 different forms of energy: kinetic, potential, nuclear, thermal, chemical, geothermal, sound, light, and electrical. Your job right now is to go back to your learning log and tell me 5 forms of energy, just naming 5 forms of energy, explaining what those work, what they do, what those forms of energy do. So for today, I would just like you to go back. You can use this chart, talk to your partner in your learning log, tell me 5 forms of energy and explain the work that they do. So then what I provided is this chart for them. This might be day 1, because day 2, what I would do is review this with them. And there's a process for review where I take word cards, quickly hand them out in 5 minutes, go back over this. The students come up, put the word cards up here, and word cards up here so that they are hearing me retell the information, but they're coming up and reviewing it, putting the words up here. Pro tip, don't bother to do anything unless you review it with students, because all we did with this information is put it on the front burner of the brain or the short-term memory, and they still need to work with it. Again, why am I doing this? I'm in a science class, I'm doing a graphic organizer. What's my purpose? My purpose is to highlight the key vocabulary that they're about to see and read in the grade level context on forms of energy. It's not the only thing that I'm worried about them understanding, because there's other examples, idioms, phrases. I'm going to need to take some other strategies with the text for all students to understand it. But I'm going to do this first, so most of my students have the key vocabulary that I'm also assessing. So there's a lot of words in that article I'm about ready to give them. And there's some other examples that I'm about to give them. But what I really want them to know are these 9 forms of energy. And I really want them to be able to tell me at least 5 forms and how the work they do. And then structurally, I need them to be able to compare the work that one form of energy does to at least another form of energy. So that is my outcome that I'm assessing them on at the end of this 4-week unit. So I'm starting here with this overview. This is a visually revealed graphic organizer called an input chart. Little clunky, guys, because I don't have students here to model and there's other layers. But I'm wondering what you think about the value of a few things. Posting, of course you all do this or might, your objective. Posting your language objective in the form of a frame. This is what I'm actually going to want the students to do. And actually, I asked them to go right back and write about these 2 things, okay? I'm actually mentioning what the English language or the ELA teacher is doing. She's working on claims and facts. And then I'm visually revealing the key vocabulary, and I'm practicing it with them in their mouths and giving them a chance to talk about it, any experiences that they've had with it prior to reading the text. There's other forms of front loading, like playing a video that has the keywords. We have those great things. Great technology things like into a Nearpod. Next week, what I'm going to do is take this chart and show you how I would review it if I didn't have technology, but how I also could review it using technology. So we'll pretend that next week is day 2 with the chart. The goal that I'm trying to share with you is a few embedded strategies, even if you didn't chart like this or understand exactly everything that was done here. You could take your notes on the whiteboard, right? And ask for every few minutes, could you turn and talk to your partner? Would you please tell them 2 things that are similar to what I just said and 2 things that are different? Or you could say, turn to your partner and tell them something you're wondering and something you notice. So you're getting them to interact and talk with those talk routines as you are reviewing and teaching your information. All right, thanks for hanging in there. This is the weirdest kind of things I've done is video and feel like I'm talking to you at the same time, and some of you I've never talked to. So what I've shared with you is a guided language acquisition design strategy called an input chart. Its purpose is to visually reveal key information and to get students talking before you give them that high-level, grade-level text to read. What's your goal? Having them read the text, but also they could actually use this as a note-taking organizer, a form of notes that they then can study for the test. All right, see ya.